Citizens of the world, welcome back to another Keep Yours podcast where we try and help you with capitalism and keep a few more dollars in your wallet instead of giving it to the man. So today, I'm going to do a recap of episode 24, and we're also doing this for YouTube, so there's visuals that you can follow along with on YouTube. And if you're interested in personality types and how they relate to money, then you can also go listen to the full podcast episode. But today we're doing a recap in what we're calling the bottom line of older podcasts, where instead of doing the full in-depth with lots of examples and stories, we're just doing a quick recap. So the recap of this episode is you and your money. And the idea here is that before we can really get into why we're in a particular situation or how to best do budgets and look at our whole financial picture, is that we first need to understand ourselves and our relationship to money. And we all don't have the same relationship. One of the things that makes it difficult for us to discuss finances, assuming that we all have the same intention and the same relationship with money. But the truth is we don't. We're very different people, and depending on our personality types, we're going to make very different financial choices because we have very different ideas of how we want to use our money. And there's not a right and a wrong, with the exception that I'll put in there that that's not good for anyone. No one wants to owe. No one wants to have sold their future self-resources. But the important things is that to know is that we do see life differently, that different personality types care about different things. And none of those are a right or a wrong, but they are important to know, and also important when you're going to relate to them or use them to discuss in a relationship, because relationships require that you talk about money. And the other piece of that is that I want you to spend your money on the things that are important to you, not things that are important to me, because they're different. And I'm not saying that what I do is what you should do. I'm not saying that because I want to save for retirement and plan to live to be 85-ish, that you should. I have a friend whose grandpa died in his 50s, whose father died in his 50s, and he's pretty convinced he's going to end up dying in his 50s or early 60s. So having a conversation with him about saving for retirement is a waste of time. So what am I saving for? I'll be dead. I'm not going to make it to retirement. So he's got a different view of what money he has and where he wants it to go and when he wants to use it. I can't argue with that. It's completely legitimate. And that's just a physical view, not necessarily a mental one. So understanding financial basics is a necessity in capitalism. This is not optional. If you don't know anything about money, then you're going to be broke your entire life. Either that or you're a trust fund kid where your dad made it so that you couldn't get all your money and you're going to have limited options and basically take what he's made an executor and they're going to decide how much you get. But even so, we all need to know about how this system works, about capitalism, and about ourselves. Because the one thing that's universally horrible for everybody is debt. And unfortunately, as part of a free market, that means that there are infinite numbers of people out there trying to sell you on debt every day. One of the latest that I just ran across was a pay later financing option for clothing, where instead of, I want shoes today that cost $100, I'm going to pay that over the next 6 months in installments. Installment sales in general are a terrible, terrible idea, because the amount that you're going to pay is going to be significantly higher than if you are patient, wait, save the money, and go buy it when you actually have the money. And understanding and knowing that is important. And understanding yourself, and if you are prone to making impulse decisions. Yes, I'm just going to buy that because I want it today. And you need to understand, we all do, that a lot of times these are psychological responses for our personal situation. So purchasing things has a psychological value to it that we don't talk about much. The power to acquire resources is real. It's a real power that, for example, when you get a credit card, the first credit card you get, we often think, hey, they give me $2,000. And we want to pretend as though somebody actually gave us $2,000 that we get to go spend on whatever we want right now. But that's not what a credit card is. A credit card is a right to spend today in exchange for your future earnings and a right to those future earnings with interest and high interest, which means a bigger right to your future earnings, more hours. And if you started breaking down what you got in terms of the goods that you acquire versus what you're going to pay for those when you consider interest expense and potentially late fees and everything else that they will try and charge you with, you'll start to see that the value proposition is very poor. And if you don't take care of your credit, then the example I use is this. You and I are both going to walk into Burger King and we both go order the exact same lunch. And they ring it up and mine's $10. And I pay, they ring up yours and they say it's $15. And you look around and go, why the hell is mine more expensive? How can that be? I bought the same thing that he bought, but I'm charged 50% more? And in an honest financial world, the girl behind the counter would look at you square in the eye and go, yes, sir, you have terrible credit, so you get to pay double. And while that doesn't apply necessarily to the initial meal at Burger King, if you put that on a credit card and I put that on a credit card and I paid mine off and you didn't, that might be a reality. And the reality is on important financial transactions that are for a lot more money when we talk about cars and houses, you will literally pay 50% more in financing cost by having poor credit versus good credit. So it matters a lot. And understanding yourself and your relationship with credit, your relationship with spending, what you want to spend your money on, and the boundaries you need to put up because of that, those are very, very, very important things. So understanding yourself and your relationship with money is important. And especially if you have a negative one, and that may have come from coming from a household or being around people who have a negative view of money. Some people say money is the root of all evil. It's a ridiculous concept. Money has the potential to absolutely create and distort things that aren't good. But money as itself is just a transfer of value. So if I do something valuable to you, let's say I come build you a house, then you give me money for building that house because I've provided you with something of value. It's a transfer of value. That's all that it is. And if you don't have a good relationship with that, that's going to be difficult for you to thrive in capitalism. The other reason that you must understand basic finance is that it is the number one reason for divorce. So maybe we need to spend a little bit more time learning about money, learning about ourselves, getting comfortable talking about money. One of the reasons I started this podcast was that friends that I have, when I'd start talking about money, they would say, no one ever sat me down and talked to me about this. And as I worked being a public accountant and sat down with clients and talked to them about their personal situation and their businesses, what I realized is that most people do not like talking about money. And the reason that is because most of us don't feel that we know enough, that we've learned enough. So we all feel inadequate. And so we don't talk about it and we don't get the lessons from it. And when we don't get the lessons from it, we repeat mistakes. And that costs us. So instead of thriving in the system, we struggle in the system. So the first question of understanding yourself is, who are you? And if you've never done a personality profile test, you should. You should do multiple of them. And I recommend that you do them with your family and your loved ones because it'll help you if you learn not just about yourself, which is the fun part. Oh, let's see what it says about me. And everyone's always surprised at how accurate it is. And the other thing that'll be included, especially in Myers-Briggs, but also in the Enneagram, is the side of you when you're not operating as your best self. The things that we struggle with, the personality traits that can be negative and can negatively impact ourselves and others. And it's often the case that when you do personality profile tests with groups, that the things you don't necessarily want to see in yourself, but others see very clearly in you, become extremely identifiable very quickly. And everyone goes, oh no, that's you. You might not like that part about you, but it is 100% true. We see it. And that's good. That's good feedback. That's good validation, because we all need to learn about ourselves so that we can change things that might not be optimal. And mostly, that's not changing who you are. You are who you are. But it might be changing your behavior. And also, when we learn about other people, we learn a lot about why maybe it's a struggle for someone to understand the way that we approach them, because that approach doesn't work for them. So there's a lot of opportunity for learning about others as well as yourself by doing personality profile tests. And then you get to learn about yourself and money. And one of the things that I want you to learn about when you're learning about money is I want you to discover the things that actually bring you joy. And the things that bring you joy are super important, because I'm not the finance guy that's going to say do or do not spend money on things. If a luxury car is your dream and that's what you want to drive, and you want to drive it brand new off the lot, I'm not going to tell you not to do that. I may tell you that it's not the wisest investment, and that if you bought one 3 years off lease, it's not that different than a new one, because technology is not changing that fast, then you could save half the price. But if that's what you want and that's where you want to spend your money, as long as it's not detrimental to your family, I don't care. No skin off my back, man. You spend your money on what you want to spend it on. Whatever makes you happy. And that's different for all of us. We all have different things that we care about and different interests that we have of where we actually want to spend our money. But a lot of us spend it in places that we don't care about. And that's the piece that I want to get to. The piece that I want you to understand is stop spending money on things you don't care about. So by learning about yourself, defining the things that you do care about, then that leads us to the questions of, oh, hey, things we can cut out of our life because we don't really care about that. It's not really that important to you. If coffee is super important to you, and we look at your budget and you go, no. If I don't get my cup of coffee in the morning, it's one of my favorite things. I love coffee. I love the taste of coffee. I want to sit, read my book with coffee, read the paper with my coffee. That's what I do. Then I'm not going to tell you to cut coffee out of your budget. We're going to look at other things that might not be as important to you and choose those things. The other reason that I want you to learn about yourself is so that as part of this, knowing what you care about is the ability to honor yourself and to honor your partner. So as we get into, like I said, the number one cause of divorce is money. And that's usually not we both agreed on the same thing. It's usually there's no agreement to begin with. It's well, I assumed this and they assumed something else, and now we're in a really shitty spot. So when you know yourself, you can be honest about your financial choices. That's the key piece, the honesty piece. You don't need everyone to agree with you. And in fact, few people are going to agree on what each individual thinks important. If you put 10 people in a room and ask them what's the most important thing that you spend money on in your life, number one, if you're a parent, the answer will be children, typically. But beyond that, what other people find important, some people think a big house is important. Some people think a new car is important. Some people think clothes are important. Some people think saving all of the money that they can is important, is the most important. Everyone's got different things. Some people it's going on vacation. I have one friend, and I'll say to him, it's good to save money for a rainy day. And he'll go, yeah, that's true, but it's sunny today, so let's go spend some. And neither one of us is wrong. Neither one of those is a wrong statement. Yeah, you do want to save some for emergencies. But at the same time, if it is beautiful out today and today's the day we could go hike and do things and tomorrow it's going to snow, then let's do that. I agree 100%. It just can't be either way the entire time or you're miserable. The other thing, when you learn about yourself, you learn where to set boundaries where you need them. For example, I'm not the guy that tells you to cut up all your credit cards. In fact, I think that credit cards offer an opportunity to get 1.5% to 2% back on everything you spend, and having good credit is that opportunity, and you should take advantage of it. In addition, if you do what's known as travel hacking or credit card hacking, you can sign up for new cards and get lots of bonus points. And those are beneficial to you. So why would I not want to do that? However, if I'm super compulsive and every time I want something, I just pull up my credit card and buy it, and I know that's a place where I can't really control myself right now, then I need to cut up that credit card and create a boundary for myself. A lot of times in relationships, we need to create boundaries for spending, i.e. neither one of us, we both agree. My wife and I agree, if we're going to spend more than $1,000, then we're going to consult the other one before we spend it, especially if it's our joint money. Now, if I'm going to go spend $1,000, if I do a side business deal and make some money and I want to go spend that on business stuff, she's not going to talk to me about it at all because that's not our money. But when it comes to our money, we want to make those decisions together. Family spending can make or break that relationship. The reason that most marriages end in divorce is because people have differences over what they want to spend their money on, and they're not reconciled beforehand. There's no budget, there's no plan, there's no understanding. Now, there's going to be the percentage of couples who do sit down and do have a budget and do have an understanding, and then one partner can't keep to it. And they go pull out debt or credit and create debt where it's not what the family wants. It's not in the family's best interest. And that creates lots of stress because then that's debt that has to be paid off and those resources aren't available. But when we understand what's important to each other, then we understand, hey, if this is important to you, then okay, I get that. And what's important to me? And I want you to understand what's important to me, and I want to understand what's important to you, so that when we sit down and do our budgets, we could say, okay, well, we've got $1,000 left over of disposable income. I want you to have $300 a month to do what you want to do. I want to have $300 a month to do what I want to do, and then we'll spend the $400 together. And that way, each of us has a piece of what we want to do that's completely separate. One of the things I always recommend is that all your accounts do not be joint. You need individual accounts so that you can spend your money the way you want and nobody else sees it, because you don't want to have to answer to somebody else for everything that you decide that you want. We eat very little sugar, but if I decide that I'm at the store and I am jonesing for a Reese's Pieces, best you, I might buy that Reese's Pieces. You best believe that. And I'm going to eat that thing. And the last thing that I want is for my wife to pull up my bank statement and go, what'd you buy for 99 cents at the store? Or to pull out the receipt if I went to the grocery store and say, oh, I see that you also bought a Reese's Pieces. Thought we weren't eating any sugar. Yeah, well, in general, we're not. But from time to time, hey, gotta live. So understanding each other and having separation, both things are valuable. The last thing is learn about others as well as yourself. There's good perspectives we can learn from. We find out what's important for other people, which means we find out what's important to ourselves. Sometimes finding out what's important to you is a matter of deductive reasoning, of determining what's not important. That's how I decided where I want to live. I traveled around the U.S. quite a bit for my job, and everywhere I went, I don't want to live in it there. I don't want to live there. I like Colorado. So Colorado's the de facto because I haven't found anywhere else that I really want to live. So that's the bottom line. Get to know yourself. Get to know your partner. Get to know yourself as you relate to money. You get to know yourself better as you relate to money. You're going to have a better relationship with money. You're going to do better in capitalism because of that. It creates the foundation for you to go through and set budgets, to set goals financially to start moving yourself towards some sort of financial independence, retirement, savings for your children for college, etc., etc. These are things that are important to all of us. So knowing yourself is the first key to understanding how you're going to treat your money, what you want to do with it, and boundaries you need to set up around it. Thanks for listening. Hope to catch you next time.